going to get here?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, we're on the record. This is the case of Kimberly Newton versus Cody Clark, 16 CI 224. I reviewed the file, and it's rather complicated. So whose motion is it?
It's our motion, Your Honor.
Why don't y'all give me a thumbnail? I'll let you both have an opportunity to kind of summarize what's happened and how we got here.
Yes, Your Honor. The evidence you'll see today will indicate that Miss Newton was married to the respondent in the state of Alaska, where they went through a divorce. At the end of that divorce, which occurred approximately 5 years ago, or began 5 years ago and ended several years ago, Miss Newton moved to the state of Kentucky. At that point, she resided in the state of Kentucky with her daughter, Kelsia Clark, in this state.
That's the child of this
That's
relationship.
the child. Yes.
And the child, did the Alaska divorce decree award custody to one of them, or?
It awarded full custody to Miss Newton, sole custody to Miss Newton.
Okay. Subject to visitation, parenting rights of the father?
There was no visitation set up in the order of the Alaskan court due to allegations of domestic violence and
Against him?
yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
And what appears to be a failure of Mr. Clark to complete some required domestic violence classes and to comply with court orders. Once Miss Newton moved to Kentucky, she would allow, on occasion, the child to return and visit with Mr. Clark's parents in the state of Wisconsin, which is where they resided. The evidence will show that every
She
time-
ever lived in the state of Wisconsin?
Never, Your Honor.
Did the child ever live there other than visiting grandparents? Or is that something that would be, come out of
I
evidence?
believe that is under dispute. We believe the
Okay.
evidence will indicate
all right,
that when the child went to the state of Wisconsin, the grandparents, working either alone or in concert with Mr. Clark, would keep the child for longer than they were allowed to keep the child, forcing Miss Newton to pursue judicial and police means to try to recover the child, and in an attempt to manufacture jurisdiction. Of important note, I think, when we are going through this, you'll see some records that were introduced as part of the case that's part of the record from 2014 that will show the child was present in Wisconsin for short periods of time, sometimes only a day at a time, and every time the child is there, they register the child for school in Wisconsin. For no apparent reason, the shortest day that you'll see on that evidence is a single day. The child, they register on one day, and the very next day she's withdrawn. So I think it's going to be clear by the time we're done with this hearing that this is the home state of this child, that Wisconsin does not have home state jurisdiction. Essentially what happened is the second period of time in February, the child went to visit for a funeral of this year. There was a car accident involving my client. At the same time as the state of Wisconsin is attempting to recover almost $30,000 in arrears for child support against Mr. Clark, he files an emergency custody action in Wisconsin coinciding with that car accident and her attempts to recover the child that they have kept from her in Wisconsin. When that happens, the judge in Wisconsin holds an emergency hearing and does not find a present danger to the child, returns the child to Miss Newton, and they end up returning to the state of Kentucky, where the child then resides until the entry of an order in Wisconsin granting custody to Mr. Clark. And that brings us to where we're at today. So we believe at the end of this hearing, it will be appropriate for this court to take jurisdiction, register what should be the valid judgment, which is the judgment of the Court of Alaska, and then if there need to be further modification proceedings, they need to proceed here in the home state of the child. And the child needs to be returned to the home state and her parent.
All right, you want to give me your summary of it?
We would,
Procedurally also, as far as how did we get here, as far as who filed the lawsuit here and so forth.
well, we got here following, after Ms. Newton learned of Wisconsin's order awarding custody to Mr. Clark, she came to Breckinridge County within days and filed this petition to register the Alaska order and to modify custody. We would disagree that the child has not resided in Wisconsin. Per Ms. Newton's own testimony at the Wisconsin hearing, she, at the time, she's claimed to live in Alaska as of July of this year. She's claimed to live in Indiana as of August of this year, July of this year. At no point does she ever say, I still live in Kentucky, I still live in Breckinridge County, I live in, she just doesn't do that. That's not what she testified to under oath to the Wisconsin judge in July. She presented that she was not in Kentucky, the child was not in Kentucky. The child was with the father for extended periods of time, and the parties, their Alaskan order that did grant sole custody to Miss Newton didn't set out a set parenting schedule. And so the parties did something that I'm sure in hindsight makes no sense to either of them, but they would frequently move the child in the middle of a school year to relocate with the other parent. The child was with Mr. Clark from June of 2015 until November 2015 and was enrolled in school in Wisconsin. She then was with the mother from November approximate 24th, 2015 to February of 2016, and then was with the father until July 18th, 2016. At that time, when the judge did deny his petition for emergency custody. However, with that denial, the judge advised that the additional petition, because Mr. Clark had also filed a motion to register the Alaskan order, to modify custody, to modify parenting time, to modify child support, advised Miss Newton that the child, she was to be back there in October for that hearing, that court had jurisdiction. At no point in time during that hearing did Miss Newton ever object to jurisdiction of Wisconsin. She personally appeared, she testified under oath. She never said, we're going back to Kentucky, we live in Kentucky, my child's in school in Kentucky. I believe they're gonna produce records today that are gonna show that at some point in September, after she had absconded the state of Wisconsin with the child, she enrolled the child in school down here, but then didn't even, it looks like, bother to take the child to school on a regular basis. It seems to be a sham registration, quite frankly. And so we think that Wisconsin is the child's home state. Neither party lives in Alaska, even though Miss Newton testified in July that that's her address. Neither party lives there. The child's not been there in years, and the only stable home that child knows is Wisconsin.
Okay, so what's our first issue then today, or what is the issue of the day? The home stay of the child?
Well, I believe, does
Yes,
this
Your
court
Honor.
have jurisdiction to even hear a motion to modify? Because we believe that the Wisconsin order trumps, and there is a Wisconsin order issued in October that grants sole custody to Mr. Clark.
I think that'll have to be the first thing decided. I agree. All right, Mr. Cash, you may call your first witness.
Your Honor, I'm going to handle the factual aspects of the case,
Okay.
if that pleases the court.
That'd be fine.
Call Mike Adams. He's in a pretrial conference room.
Mr. Adams, you'd raise your hand before you sit down, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give us the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Have a seat in the witness chair, and when you're responding to questions, please speak up so we can hear you, and we are recording you by video. State your name and your address, please.
Michael Adams, 134 Old Ford Road, Shepherdsville, Kentucky.
You may ask, Mr. Harden.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Adams, how do you know Kimberly Newton?
She's worked for me for the last 5 years.
And what type of work do you do?
I build log cabins.
And she has been your employee for the previous 5 years?
Yep.
Do you know where she lives in Kentucky?
Yeah.
What area of Kentucky is that?
It's Breckenridge now, and before that, she lived with her dad in.
And have you ever known of a period of time where she lived in any other state in the previous 5 years?
No.
She's been continuously employed by you and not had any breaks in that employment? You have to,
Yes, sir.
okay. And I have no more questions for Mr. Adams.
Would you may cross the witness?
So what years did you state that she worked for you?
The last 5 years.
Okay, and that was consistently.
Yeah, yeah.
Has she lived with you?
She was for a little bit from her dad's to where she's at now.
What dates was she living with you?
Oh, I don't even remember the date. She was there for a few months, I think, from February to July, I think.
Was her daughter Kelsey residing with you?
Yep. She got on the school bus there,
From February of when? What year?
2015,
February 2015? Until when?
until school was out.
Of 2015?
Yeah.
So in May or June of 2015?
Yeah, June.
And do you all work in areas other than here locally?
Yeah, I travel around and work. I did a lot in Shelbyville, Kentucky, and Taylorsville, sometimes Lake Cumberland.
Do you travel out of state?
Sometimes, I have now since Kelsey's been gone, but I'm doing one in Indiana.
Did Miss Newton reside in Nashville, Indiana for a period of time? Did you all stay up there for an extended period of time for work?
During the summer, she was there for about a month. Come up and help me for about a month, and then she moved to Breckenridge.
And do you have any employment records or anything like that with you showing that she's worked for you?
Not with me.
You said not with you. Do you have those records, though?
Yes.
Did you, was she a, what I call a W-2 employee? Did she,
1099.
so you didn't withhold Social Security or taxes on her? Did you issue her 1099 for each year that she worked for you?
Just the last 2 years, I've got 1099s on her.
Why would you not issue them before then?
She just worked a little bit here and there. It had to be like when Kelsey wasn't in school if I was farther out of town. So sometimes I worked too far away for her to help me.
Go ahead.
No further questions.
Can you redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Your testimony was that she lived with you from February through July of 2015?
Yes. Until school went out, until school was out.
Okay. There are school records that say that the child was enrolled in a Wisconsin school from February of 2015 through June of 2015. Are you sure that's the same year?
I might have the year wrong.
You had to speak up a little bit. I can't hear what you said.
I don't know that right now. I'd have to look at the records to see what it was.
So you don't know if it was you don't know if 2015 is the exact year?
No.
Because, do you remember the child being on a school bus the entire time? Or from February through July?
Yeah, sometimes we took her to school, so.
So you would say more than likely it's not the calendar year of 2015 then?
That was this last year. No, it was the year before that.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Adams, was your relationship with Miss Newton strictly employer-employee, or was there a romantic or a social aspect to their
No,
relationship?
just employee. I was friends with her and her dad.
All right. Are you married?
No.
Okay. You live alone? Okay. Any other?
Did you go to Wisconsin with her in, was it July?
Yep.
How long were you all up there for?
I was just there a couple days.
How long was Miss Newton there for?
I think she was there probably 7 to 10 days after I left.
And you all went up there because her daughter was there? No further questions.
And it's your testimony that she's worked for you for the past 5 years, uninterrupted?
Well, it's, like I said, if her daughter was in school and I was farther out of town to where that wouldn't work, then she didn't, but sometimes she worked at my house, and she did a lot of my record keeping my files going.
Do you view, I'm not asking this as a legal question, but as a factual matter, just common sense, can you testify that she's resided in Kentucky for the past 5 years?
Oh, yes, yeah. I met her and her dad together, and we played music out at their house and stuff, so I've known them for a while.
Who is her father?
Robert, Bob Newton.
Bob Newton. Does he live here in this county, or?
No, he's in Lebanon Junction area.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, either side? All right. Thank you, sir. Let me call your next witness.
Robert Newton, Your Honor.
Sir, if you would raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, have a seat in the witness chair, and I want you to be sure to speak up so we can all hear you. You're being recorded on video, so for the record. Let's start off by stating your name and your address, please.
My name is Robert Newton. I live at 365 North Ridge Road, Elizabethtown, Kentucky.
Okay? You may ask.
Thank you, Your Honor. How are you related to Kimberly Newton?
I'm her father.
Okay. And did Miss Newton come to live with you?
Yes, she did.
When did that happen?
She came in, was, I believe, November of 2011 and stayed through July of 2015.
Now, Mr. Adams was just in here. Did she live with Mr. Adams for any period of time through there?
Yes, as far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay. And
You say she stayed with you till July of 2015?
I'm sorry?
Was your testimony she lived with you from November of 2011 to July of 2015?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
how long of a period of time would you say that she resided with Mr. Adams?
I do not know.
Okay. Did the child or her child live with you?
Yes, the whole time.
And do you know where she moved from in 2011? Do you know?
Anchorage. Anchorage, Alaska.
Okay. And where did the kid go to school?
Lebanon Junction Elementary School.
And was that through your address? Was that through your address?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know what age the child was when she moved in?
Not precisely, I don't, no, I'm horrible at that.
No, you're fine. Did she attend school regularly? Was it in, what was the name of the school?
Lebanon Junction Elementary School.
She attended school regularly there?
I often took her to school myself on the, yes.
Okay. And are you aware of any breaks in the child's school while she was living with you?
I know that her mother did homeschool for a period while she was there, but I couldn't give you the exact dates. Yeah, so I am aware.
Are you aware of any time in 2015 when the child was in a school in Wisconsin?
No.
I guess had Kim and the child moved out at that point in time?
I suppose that was, there's a lot of things that I wasn't kept up to date with, though, after she had moved out.
So to the best of your knowledge, she lived with you for approximately 4 years, maybe a little bit more than 4 years?
Yes,
Okay. And are you aware of the child ever residing in Wisconsin or anywhere else for that matter outside of the state of Kentucky?
no. The child never lived anywhere else.
I have no more questions, Your Honor.
May I ask?
So during that time frame, did your daughter stay some other places though, other than just with you?
During that time period, those 4 years?
2011 to July 2015?
No, principally that was her address. She had,
Well, I know principally, I mean, I get principally, but was she actually physically staying some other
yes, she
places?
was.
What kinds of other places was she staying?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Jakes, I think that the question was confusing. I think he was trying to answer.
Yeah, I think he thought you said, you agreed that, I can't tell, just ask the question.
Let me try to re-ask it.
Yeah, I think he did misunderstand your question though, but go ahead.
So between 2011 and July 2015, I know she used your address for her physical address.
Yes,
Was she actually staying other places some during that time?
no, she wasn't staying at other places. She always had a residence at that place the whole time. Visiting, maybe.
So if Mr. Adams testified that she had lived with him from February 2015 to May or June of 2015, that would be a lie.
No, I'm not gonna say that.
I'm going to intervene here. I don't think that's a proper question. I don't think you can ever ask a witness if someone else has lied. You can probe it, but I don't think you can ask if they lied. I think the law is pretty clear. We can't do that on cross-examination. But you can ask it. I know what you're getting at, and ask it another way.
How did Kelsey get to school during the time that she was living with you?
How did Kelsey get to school? Well, the bus stops right in front of our house, and I often took her myself.
And so that was most every day, one way or the other, that's how she was
Yes.
in there. Did anyone else take her to school during that time?
No,
Did
not
Kelsey-
when she was living in my house.
Did Kelsey live at Mr. Adams' home during that time?
No, not that I'm aware of, no.
How often was Kelsey going to visit her father or her father's family in Wisconsin?
It was on occasion. There was no schedule.
When she would go there, how long would she stay?
I know that if she went up for a 2-week visit, that it always turned into a more lengthy stay because it would end up being a battle to get the child back. So there was, I really can't answer that question with any precise answer.
Was Kelsey enrolled in school in Wisconsin, to your knowledge?
No. She was not enrolled in school in,
Why did your daughter move out in July 2015 from your home?
I was selling my home, and I have sold that home since, and that's the reason.
What was the address of that home you sold?
184 Maryland Road, Lebanon Junction, Kentucky.
And you sold that in the summer of 2015?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor?
Mr. Newton, I want to go back to something that is still a little bit unclear in my mind. Period of time from February of 2015 to June of 2015, almost 2 years ago.
Okay.
Did your daughter and her child live with you, or were they staying with Mr. Adams? Do you recall?
I know that Kimberly would have to leave to go to work, and that she would stay with Mr. Adams. But I make the statement the way I do because she always had a permanent residency at my house. So she always had a room, always had, all of her stuff, everything was at my house. She left and did jobs because Mike works on location.
Where would her child go when she would do that? With her?
Most of the time with her, stayed with her. At those times after she left the house, I couldn't verify anything, but I know that Kelsey was with them most of the time.
Redirect,
None, Your Honor.
recross?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. You may, your excuse, sir. Call your next witness.
Oh, Kimberly Newton, Your Honor.
Do you swear affirm testimony you're about to give is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, have a seat, Ms. Newton, and state your name and your address, please.
My name's Kimberly Newton. I live at 305 O'Connell Park Road, Hardinsburg, Kentucky, 40143.
Okay, you may ask.
Thank you, Your Honor. Are you aware of a child support being registered in, I guess a child support action being registered in Wisconsin in November of 2014?
No, I am what I am now, but
And do you know what the amount of that arrearage was?
it's around $30,000.
Okay.
How much?
It's around 30. I think it's $26,540 or something like that.
And is that the only action that you were ever aware of in Wisconsin up until July of 2015?
Yes.
Where did you Yes, sir. I apologize. I did state the wrong date. Has there been any other action in Wisconsin that you're aware of up until July of 2016, when the emergency custody hearing was?
There was a child support hearing on June 3rd or something like that. I mean,
Had you ever been into Wisconsin for any type of custody action prior
No.
to July of 2016?
no.
Okay. In regards to, when you left Alaska, where did you move?
Kentucky.
And in what year was that?
It's 2011.
And who did you move in with?
My father.
And do you want to give us a timeline of what happened from 2011 to 2015 in regards to your residence?
Yeah, the first time we came to Kentucky was Kelsey's birthday. It was spring 2011. And we were here like 2 months, and then we went back to Alaska for a month. And she wasn't in school yet. But then we kind of went back and forth 3 or 4 times to Alaska to Kentucky, moving our stuff. And but we weren't in Alaska for very long. And then she went to a full year of kindergarten and first grade solidly at my dad's in Lebanon Junction, which would have been 2014, 2015. I think she's in first grade. 2015, 2016 would be second grade. 2016, 2017 would be third grade.
Prior to September of 2015, had this child ever resided in Wisconsin?
So that is second grade. She's never resided in Kentucky or in Wisconsin ever, lived in Wisconsin ever.
In July of 2015, did you send the child for I guess, a visit with his parents?
Yes,
Okay. When was that child to be returned?
before school started in Kentucky.
Okay. When would school have started in Kentucky, or approximately?
In Bullitt County, it starts, like the end of August out here.
Was the child returned in September or August of 2015 to go to school?
No,
When was the child finally returned to Kentucky?
November 17th.
And from that point in time, was that the first time that they had ever kept the child for longer than they were supposed to?
Yes.
What happened in February of 2016?
They wanted her they had a death in the family and they wanted her to go to a funeral.
Did you permit that?
Yes.
And was your child returned to you?
No.
What did you do at that point in time to try to accomplish the return of the child?
Called the police. I got a writ of assistance from the state of Alaska. I called the police in Alaska. I called the police in Wisconsin.
Did you go to Wisconsin?
I went to Wisconsin. I looked for her for several weeks.
Could you find your child from February through June of 2016?
No.
What state was the family funeral in that she went to?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Did you get notice of an emergency custody hearing that was to occur in Wisconsin?
Yes.
Do you recall about what month that was of 2016?
I found out about the emergency hearing when I was in Wisconsin looking for her.
So you were served while you were in Wisconsin?
I was actually served at the court that day, July 14th.
So, well, in regard, so you go to the emergency custody hearing in Wisconsin, is that correct?
Yes.
At the end of that hearing, did you return to Kentucky with the child?
Yes.
At that point in time, what did you do?
I hired an attorney here in the state to register my order and to, because it was our home state,
Were you aware in August, not now, were you aware in August or September of any further emergency custody orders or hearings or anything of that nature going on in Wisconsin?
No.
After the hearings, were you notified that he was awarded sole custody of the child?
After it was all over, yeah.
Okay. Had your attorney, who was your attorney here in Kentucky at that point in time?
Tim Hendricks.
Had he registered the Alaskan order here at that time when you got the order?
I don't know what he did, but late, way late.
In regards to, had you ever been, you were never present nor knew about the hearing at any time in Wisconsin in August or September? You have to answer.
Oh, no.
When were you arrested?
November 11th.
November 11th? And do you want to explain to the court what happened in regards to
Well,
that?
it was November 3rd and the 11th on the same thing. The police kicked in both of my doors and removed Kelsey from our house.
Speak up louder so I can hear you, please.
The
Kicked in both your doors and did what?
removed Kelsey, my daughter, from the house,
What county was that in?
Breckenridge.
In relation to, in that, what at that point in time did you find out? What charges were brought against you as to where they kicked in your doors?
I was charged with custodial interference.
Prior to the day of them kicking in that door, did you have any notice that you had a felony warrant out for you?
I had no idea.
Since that date, have you seen your child since November 11th?
No.
Did you ever have any intention of leaving Kentucky from the time you got here?
No, only if I did it, only to see my sister in Alaska if she just had a baby.
Have you given false addresses to Wisconsin?
I didn't, not my mailing address.
Why won't you give them your mailing address?
Well, my mailing address, my P.O. box.
No, why would you not give the state of Wisconsin your physical address?
Because I didn't want Cody to have it
Why?
because of everything that happened before when we were divorced.
You scared of them?
Yeah, I mean, very much, yeah.
I have no more questions, Your Honor.
Let me ask you a couple questions before you do. Tell me about how did you grow up in Kentucky?
No, I was born and raised in Alaska.
In Alaska, okay. And did you meet Mr. Clark in Alaska?
Yeah, yes.
Is he from Alaska also?
He's from Wisconsin.
Okay. What was he doing in Alaska when you met him?
He was in the Army.
Okay, so you all were married there.
Yeah.
So you're a native of Alaska. Okay, you may ask.
You stated you had no knowledge of the October hearing in Wisconsin, correct?
Objection, mischaracterization. She said she had no knowledge of the September and August hearings, not of the October hearing.
Sustained.
Okay. Did you have knowledge of the October hearing?
Yes.
You did not go to that hearing, did you?
I sent in 10 days prior the telephone request forms, but I asked for continuance as well.
And then you did appear at the hearing in July, I believe it was July 18th
Yes.
of this year in Wisconsin. At that time, under oath, where did you tell that judge that you resided?
I had planned to visit my sister in Alaska to see her baby, but I decided it was safer to go back to our home state where we have lived for the last 5 years. That's what I was advised to do.
Do you recall the address that you provided the judge there that you said was your residential address?
My sister's address, but I never went to visit her.
What was that address?
It's 1130 West 31st, Anchorage, Alaska, 90503.
Did you testify that your most recent address had been in Indiana?
No,
You didn't testify that you lived in Nashville or Indianapolis, Indiana?
no. That's the last place I worked.
If I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
You may.
I have here a copy. Of a transcript of your testimony at the hearing in Wisconsin. So let's go through this, because the judge there went to great lengths to try to figure out where you were living at, correct?
Right. Well, like I said, like Alaska child support and everything, because there was so many cases of domestic violence. The state of Alaska had placed so many orders on their own between me and Cody. My address has always been kept under seal and secret. Like I said, I was a little bit, with the addresses because I didn't want to give out exactly where we were at because of how he is.
So you had sole custody though, right, from Alaska?
Yes,
And the parenting time was essentially at your discretion, correct?
yes.
So you're telling me you're so afraid of this man that you would send your daughter up there
He
unsupervised for
doesn't,
periods of time?
yeah, he has not lived in, to my knowledge, he has not lived in the state of Wisconsin. He came out of nowhere, and then she wasn't sent back.
Let's go back to this. On page 49, at the very bottom, if you want, you can turn back if you want, so you make sure you're looking at the same thing I am. I'm sorry, I don't have an additional copy for the court. This is where you testified that your residential address was Anchorage, correct?
Right, like I said, I was not very clear about the addresses because I was scared.
And then on page 51, on approximately line 13, you advised the court that you had a little apartment in a cute little town, correct? In Nashville or?
While I was staying there.
Right. So, but you actually, I mean, to
Like
say
I
that you were
said- like I
somewhere for
said,
work.
I was not
Judge,
clear about the addresses.
I'm going to object. We're taking little snippets out of context here. I think if we look at this whole document here, she clearly says on page 50, do you have a copy of this, Judge?
I was gonna give him the certified copy. We would ask to introduce this transcript, actually, as our exhibit.
The objection?
So the introduction of the record is certified, right?
It is the certification of the
That's fine.
It'd be without objection. That would be Respondent's Exhibit Number 1. Now, getting back to your objection.
Yeah, return to my previous objection. The objection is to the mischaracterization of the evidence, which I'm glad we introduced it, because on page 49 where we started, the judge asked the current residential address. She says the address in Alaska, and then very clearly says in the next line, I'm going to that address, it's not my previous address. We're mischaracterizing this as some kind of evasion when that's not what it was.
I'll let you cover that on redirect.
That's fine, Your Honor.
Any other questions on cross?
Yes, Your Honor. So, at no point at that hearing did you object to Wisconsin holding jurisdiction, did you?
I am not an attorney. I did not even know what jurisdiction meant at that time.
At any point, did you advise the Wisconsin court, hey, I want to deal with this in Kentucky?
I just got my kid back and went back home.
Yeah, I guess part of
It was
that is-
it was over with. They gave her back to me and I left. And I did, and I brought it up here.
But you were advised at that time that the hearing on the underlying motion to modify custody was scheduled in October, correct?
I'm going to object to that as a miscalculation, Your Honor. We have the Wisconsin certified record in there. This was an emergency custody hearing. The UCCJEA specifically says what is to occur at an emergency custody hearing. And in fact, you cannot keep jurisdiction from the emergency custody jurisdiction. She is being asked a question about whether, I guess she acknowledged that jurisdiction was somehow kept by Wisconsin even after an emergency custody hearing, when she knows nothing except she went to an emergency custody hearing. I don't think she can answer that somehow she acknowledged or stipulated or didn't object to a jurisdictional act that should have never applied in the first place. So that's my objection.
Your Honor, with all due respect, there was the emergency petition, motion for emergency custody. There was also in June a motion filed just to modify the custody, to modify everything. The judge, what I'm trying to get at is she had the opportunity to raise the issue that custody should not be addressed there because the judge, through the transcript, clearly specified this underlying motion, not the emergency action, but reminded her that this other motion was still pending and that Wisconsin was going to hear that in October. She knew of it. She did not object to them hearing that. As a matter of fact, she didn't do anything about that until after she received the order where they ruled against her. If she could have, when she came back to Kentucky, hired an attorney and said, hey, I think Wisconsin's trying to do something.
I'll let her answer the question. I'll overrule your objection. Where was the Alaska court when this was all taking place? Why did Wisconsin assume jurisdiction here when clearly it didn't have jurisdiction legally at the time?
What I can gather through the transcript, because certainly I don't want to try to get in the judge's mind, it appears...
Well, we're going to have to.
Right. It appears that everybody agreed nobody had had any contact with Alaska. The child was not there. It appeared from records and whatnot that the child had been in Wisconsin. The child was physically in Wisconsin at the time. The father was in Wisconsin at the time. And the mother came up there. And so I think that that is how it was. And I don't know that because it kind of got lost in the jumble that the judge ever did a conference with the Alaskan judge to see if that was proper.
Did the Wisconsin court modify an Alaska decree without going through the Uniform Act
Yes, Your Honor.
requirements? So what happened here?
Yes, Your Honor.
What do you say?
I'm unsure what they did. I know that they took the motion, then they heard the emergency issues, and they did deny the emergency.
Was she represented by counsel?
At the emergency, no, hearing.
Was she ever represented in Wisconsin by an attorney?
Well, I don't think she showed back up in Wisconsin after the emergency.
Okay. Go ahead.
And so I think where we left off is, at no point did you say this should be addressed in Kentucky to the court.
I just got my daughter back and left. I don't know.
Did you leave the court there with the impression that you were going back to Alaska?
Well, I planned a vacation to Alaska for that summer, but by that time it was time to leave Wisconsin. It was almost time for school to start, so I didn't have time to take vacation to Alaska, and plus I needed to come back to our home state.
When did you enroll? Did you enroll Kelsey in school?
Yes.
When?
September 5th. The exact day that it starts in,
In where?
or the last year, it's on, yeah.
When did you say school started? I'm sorry.
So I enrolled her September 5th,
And that was in Breckinridge County or Bullitt
Yes.
County?
Breckenridge.
So she was not in school in August at all?
No.
How frequently between 2011 and when all of this started in 2000, let's say the summer of 2016, how frequently was Kelsey going to Wisconsin?
She went a total of 4 times ever. And the first 2 times were 2 weeks.
Do you recall when those times were?
Christmas and her birthday.
And she only stayed 2 weeks each time?
Christmas, 2 weeks, and yeah.
Did she go there in, I believe it was June 2015?
She went there in July of 2015.
Okay. And how long did she stay there then,
She stayed until November 17th.
of 2015?
Yeah, but she,
And then she went back in February of 2015, or 2016, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Your testimony that the child was in Wisconsin 4 times,
Yeah, I think so.
never more than 2 weeks at a time?
No, the last 2 times were, she was kept longer. It was supposed to be for 2 weeks.
Go ahead.
Did she attend school in Wisconsin prior to, I guess, the fall of 2015?
I'm learning that she attended school, you know, she was not ever supposed to attend school there.
But did she attend school there?
Yes.
Because when she was going to visit, it was in the middle of the school year, correct?
No,
No.
no.
And how did she attend school there?
She went in July, in the summer, and she was supposed to come back in August, and she didn't come back. And then the time before that was Christmas break. She came back. The time before that might have been Christmas break also, and she came back. Then this last time, it was supposed to be for a funeral that was supposedly at the bottom side of Wisconsin, and she wasn't returned. And I had no idea where she was.
Other than with Mr. Adams and at your father's home, have you stayed for extended periods of time at other addresses or locations?
My house?
Do you mean your current house?
Yes.
What about prior to that?
No.
There were never any periods of time where you were homeless?
No.
You were never living in a storage unit?
No. No.
Did your father kick you out of his home due to your methamphetamine use?
No.
Who currently resides with you?
No one. I live alone.
Your Honor, I'm going to go ahead and object to relevance at this point. The purpose of the hearing today is to establish the home state of the child, which is where are people residing, when and for how long, and what is the course of conduct between children being transferred. We're not having a hearing to determine best interest of the child or modification. It's not that I'm concerned about the answers to any of these questions, I just think it's an unnecessary waste of time.
Overall, it's on the periphery, I think, of it. The father could be called back to ask that question you asked about was she kicked out for methamphetamine use, but I'm not sure that's very relevant at this point either. It may become relevant, of course, but overruled, but go on.
I have no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Redirect.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
May.
This is some records from Chittick. I guess that's Weyerhaeuser. Those are the records that they're in the section. Would you, these are records that were part of the Wisconsin record, Your Honor, that I had certified and brought here. Would you describe the dates on there that the child was allegedly enrolled in school? And the dates beginning and the dates ending in July or in 2014 and 2015?
So 2014 December,
Yes, what day did that start?
12/8/2014.
So on December 8th of 2014, they enrolled the child in school in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'm not sure that she was there yet.
Is that,
Yeah.
does that correspond to the 2-week visit that you permitted them to have over Christmas? And we're talking about grandparents, not Mr. Clark, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. Does that correspond, that December 8th date, to that time frame?
yes.
And what day does it say the kid was withdrawn from the school?
12/23/2014.
Okay, 12/23/2014. What is the next date in Wisconsin that they say the child was enrolled in school?
They said it was the 2015 school year.
Which dates?
In the 1st of January to this July 2nd, 2014. She was with me. She went to school that whole time.
Okay. And what is the third date?
4/8/2014 and 8/16/2014. 4/8. She again was with me. At Lebanon Junction Elementary School, she attended there.
In regards to, I think you may have missed the middle date. What is,
New Year's, on New Year's Day.
you think that's a 1 or a 7?
Oh, that might be, on New Year's Day for one day. Right?
No, I'm gonna object, she's stated the date multiple times now.
I think she's misread it, though. is what they're getting at.
Easily a 7, Your Honor.
Is it?
It's not even close.
How would you enter a child on New Year's Day anyway? But I don't know. I mean, I'm not testifying, but
Yes, Your
he's got the right to inquire if he thinks she's misread it.
So July of 2014, that would have been the first 2-week visit. Is that correct?
Yes.
So these dates correspond to 2-week visits, the first two that you spoke about. Is that correct?
Yes.
The third, you allege that you had the child that entire time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. In regards to, does the judge have a copy of these?
Yes, we did.
You already entered those?
I'm sorry.
Anthony
No, we've not
wrote
entered
on
those.
these,
We've not entered those. I'm sorry, I thought, yes, I had a copy. We've not entered those.
not entered those. Do you have another copy of these? Then I'll just ask questions.
I'm sure they will get in it.
Okay. In regards to Woodland Elementary, are you aware of your child personally ever attending Woodland Elementary in Wisconsin?
I've looked at records. I'm not,
Okay. The first date that it says that your child was enrolled in Woodland Elementary School was June 15th of 2015 through August 14th of 2015. Are you aware of,
I know I was not.
are you aware of summer school in Wisconsin, or was your kid in your possession in June of 2015 through August of 2015?
20, June for sure, if I'm thinking of the right year. And part of July.
When did the child go to Wisconsin?
In July.
In July. The child was unenrolled in August 14th of 2015 by these records, and then re-enrolled on September 1st of 2015. Had you requested that your child be returned at that point in time?
Yes.
You said the child was returned on November 17th, is that correct?
Yes.
And their school records show November 2014 as the child being returned.
Yes.
Okay. And then the only other record we have is beginning February 24th, 2016. Who died? Or what communication was made to you that somebody died?
Cody's mother said her mother had died.
Now, prior to that, you earlier made a statement that, did you believe that Cody even lived in Wisconsin at that time?
I had no idea.
Did you think he lived there?
I thought he lived in Virginia.
Okay. So you didn't even think he was present in the state when you were permitting the child to go there, is that correct?
Yes.
When did you return, or when did you expect the child to return from the February visit?
Like about a week or two at the
Okay.
most.
So you expected this to be a week or two visit in regards to a death?
Yes.
At that point in time, well, I think I've already went through that. I have no more questions at this point in time. No, I do, I'm sorry. Based on all of these records, and these are necessarily the only dates that they've ever stated that this child was in Wisconsin, was this child ever in Wisconsin for more than 6 months?
No.
I have no more questions.
Recross.
No questions at this time.
All right, you can have a seat at council table. Any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, you have witnesses you want to call.
I'll call Cody Clark.
Okay, Mr. Clark, come around, please.
Your Honor, is there any way I could request maybe a 3 or 4 minute break? I'm about to bust.
Sure, let's take a 10-minute break. We'll go off the record.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Don't any of you talk to any of the witnesses that may be recalled or that were going to testify?
I probably am going to recall the father. I will leave him in the pretrial conference room, Your Honor.
Are there any, just so I don't accidentally run anybody, are there any witnesses I need to not talk to other than your client? Okay.
Those witnesses may be told they can go to the restroom or something if they want to, if they're back there.